The president was incredibly close to Charlie Kirk. He has been described as Trump's youth whisperer for the way that he tapped in to the political power of young people in this country. He started a massive movement of young people across this country through events very much like the one that he was hosting today in Utah. His podcast listened to by millions. The president had a close personal relationship, not just political, but personal relationship with him. David, I can tell you that this White House today is saddened, is shocked, and is outraged by what we have seen and this horrific violence and the death of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, stay with us here, Mary, as we continue to report this out. Charlie Kirk, President Trump confirming moments ago, did not survive this shooting on a campus in Utah today. And just to bring our audience up to speed, as you know, he's a conservative activist, podcaster, traveling to college campuses across this country, the director of Turning Point USA. His wife was Erica. 31 years old, Charlie Kirk, 2 children, the youngest of which turned 1 just this past May. And he's known, obviously, not just for his activism and his visits to college campuses. He was an author, a media personality, a podcaster. And as Mary said moments ago, it is hard to overstate just how deeply connected Charlie Kirk was to President Trump and to the Trump family. Not an official advisor within the White House, but certainly an advisor in an unofficial role in very close contact with people who are closest to President Trump in the White House and with the president himself. And on this point, I want to bring in our chief Washington correspondent, Jonathan Karl. John, you had a very brief conversation with President Trump just moments ago. What did he say?
I had a brief conversation with the president over the phone. He sounded quite upset, quite down about this. He told me it's horrific. It's one of the most horrific things I've ever seen. He was a great guy. He was a good man. He was an incredible guy. There's nobody like him. Charlie Kirk, as Mary pointed out, was truly a personal confidant of the president, incredibly close to the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., and really, in many ways, the beating heart of the MAGA movement. His Turning Point USA organization, not just a campus organization, David. This was an organization that put on some of the largest and most ambitious conventions, rallies, events for Donald Trump around the country with pyrotechnics and huge crowds. Also, one other thing I think that is very important about Charlie Kirk is that he was somebody, particularly in recent months, who was making a point to try to engage with those that he disagreed with. Look, he had far-right views, some very controversial views, but he sat down not long ago and did a podcast with Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. On his college campus tours, he would often give speeches. He would be protested, but then when it was over, when the discussion was over, his part of speaking, he would welcome questions from the crowds, including hostile questions in many cases from college students, and engage in those who found his views deeply problematic and offensive. He wanted to engage in those people, and he did so directly. And in fact, that appears to be what he was doing today in Utah when this horrific event happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. John, thank you. John Karl reporting on his call with President Trump moments ago. And again, Charlie Kirk has died after being shot at Utah Valley University. You heard John mention there that he welcomed debate, wanted to engage on college campuses, was known for his conservative views, though he welcomed people from the other side of the aisle and tried to engage with them. Engaging in debate, heated debate at times. And in fact, as John mentions, it was during one of those questions, one of those debate-like moments that this horrible event played out in Utah today. Let's get the latest on the suspect, because for a time, school officials had said a suspect was in custody, but police at this hour say the suspect is still at large. So let's bring in our chief investigative correspondent, Erica Tursky, to help us make sense of the language, the semantics here. Bottom line, police are saying that the suspect is still at large. Bring us up to speed on that part of this and what we thought was the case, that there was someone in custody in connection, potentially.
Just after the shooting took place, David, the university had said that the shooter was in custody, but quickly the university and Orem police in Utah are now saying there is still a suspect at large. but they've also told us, David, there is no call to shelter in place at this time. So there does not appear to be a concern by law enforcement about any wider threat from the individual who shot and killed Charlie Kirk. This all went down just after noon local time in Utah. Kirk was speaking beneath a tent at an outdoor event on the university campus. It was a controversial event from the start. Supporters of his and opponents of his were gathered in that space together. The eyewitness accounts have said it was probably 60-40 supporter versus non. And he was being asked a question about gun violence on American campuses when that shot rang out. Law enforcement sources who have seen the same video we have, David, have taken a look at it and said it appeared the shot came from a high caliber weapon. It does not appear that Kirk could have survived the nature of his very grim injury to the neck.
Stick
David.
with us here, Aaron. I have some follow-up questions for you. And for our audience watching, we're going to be on the air right up until about 5 p.m. Eastern. For many of you here in the East, we'll then join your local news at 5 p.m. Aaron Katursky, I want to come back to you because we're looking at the crowds there at Utah Valley University racing from the scene when they heard that gunshot. Obviously, we're not going to show the moment. It is horrific. And when the shot was fired, as you point out, Aaron, and John Carl was talking about this earlier, he was engaged in what he welcomed, which was debate from all angles, all sides. And it was a question, in fact, about gun violence and mass shootings in this country over the last several years, Aaron. And it appeared, and it's very early, and obviously the investigation is just underway, but it appears that that shot was fired from, what, a couple hundred yards away, another building on campus there?
It would seem so, about 200 yards away, David, but the authorities haven't said for sure. They have not identified the weapon, but law enforcement sources are telling us it appears to have been a high-caliber weapon. The shot fired at a high velocity, striking Charlie Kirk. It appeared from the video, and according to eyewitnesses, in the neck. It was a very bloody injury. Immediately, the crowd gathered there in that courtyard to hear him speak started running and saying they could not believe what they had witnessed. There was security with Charlie Kirk. His visits on campuses across the country are often controversial. It appeared to us to be about 5 or 6 individuals making up his security detail. Often they're scanning the crowd for weapons at close range, maybe not something off in the distance. And it was his private security detail that appeared to carry Charlie Kirk from the scene, race him away from campus, where he has now been pronounced dead by President Trump.
Of course, those moments, the video likely being seen across the internet, shows just how horrific this was. Thousands of students on that campus had gathered to hear Charlie Kirk, the conservative political activist, Turning Point USA. President Trump has credited Charlie Kirk with helping him to get elected again, to return to the White House, that it was Charlie Kirk who in large part was responsible in many ways for engaging young people across this country in a conservative movement to try to get President Trump back into the White House. The president himself has talked about the value of Charlie Kirk and having him so close as an outside advisor. And there you see them on the stage there. I want to bring in Pierre Thomas because, Pierre, our Chief Justice correspondent, you have reported often on this broadcast, World News Tonight, and here on ABC,